Hey everyone, Kevin Ross from Innovative Nurse. Welcome to my new series, A Shot of Technology. Alright, so today I want to give you my brief overview of the Samsung Chromebook. Now I know there are plenty of reviews out there. It's been out for a few months and you can find the various tech sites that have done reviews on it. But what I wanted to share with you is that I was lucky enough to pick this thing up over the holidays, right before Christmas, when everybody sold out, and still, as of this video, sold out. And I got lucky enough I happened to be in a Best Buy, and it was right there, the last one, and I just grabbed it. And so, you know, I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, and I just kind of want to give you my opinion, because people have been asking me about this Google Chromebook, and if they could utilize it in their home and or their business. Again, the quick answer here, I think, is yes on both of those. Now, this is very Mac Air-ish comparison. Mac Air, the very thin MacBook from Apple comparison. A lot of people have compared it. It's a little over 2 pounds, 2.4 pounds. It is not even an inch thick, so about 0.8 inches there. The one thing is I think Samsung had to put this piece here to make it slim because of the way it kind of rolls up. So something to do, I think, probably with the battery or however they had to work it and put some of the internals in it. It doesn't really bother me. And again, at a $249 entry here, I mean, you can compare it to a MacBook Air, but it's different. I mean, it's just, you're talking two different tools and operating systems. And so I think it's a great little piece of hardware. So what we've got here is there's no fan in it. This is an ARM processor that they use in tablets. This is a A15 based Samsung Exynos dual core processor. There are no fans, no moving parts in this. So fortunately, and I'll tell you the story about last night here in just a moment, this thing doesn't really heat up. It's not gonna burn your legs or anything. 16 gigs of built-in flash storage. It does have an SD card slot, and I'll show you that in just a moment. The screen itself is a matte screen. It's 11.6 inches. It's 1366 by 768. You can view 1080p high def on this device itself. It's got 2 gigs of RAM. This is the Wi-Fi only version, again at $249. A, B, G, and N. And then of course Bluetooth as well. Now, working our way around the device itself, we've got the SD card slot here. We've got the charging port here. Really small charging. I thought that was interesting when I first looked at that. This is an HDMI out. Again, you can HDMI to a bigger screen like a television and watch high def. And so I think it's a nice little add there. One USB device here that's 2.0. and another USB device. It's a little bit faster. This is a 3.0. And then over here, now this does not have a 3G radio built into it. There is a 3G version, but I think to save dollars here, like save some money, Samsung just basically made the sort of the guts of the notebook itself all the same to save some buckage, because this SD card slot, or the SIM card slot here, has like a rubber piece over it, so it's non-functional. There's no radio in here for 3G, which doesn't really matter. I've got a smartphone that I can tether to, so if I'm not at a hotspot, if I'm not in my office or home or where, I can just tether to my phone and it'll pull right up. But what this is a cloud device. I mean, you can work on the device itself. Like if you don't have a connection, there are things that you can do. You're not gonna be able to surf the internet, of course, or sync things wirelessly, unless you got a smartphone, you kind of got Bluetooth communication back and forth, or again you're tethered to your phone. But I'm talking about like when you're not on Wi-Fi, you can work on the device on that 16 gigs. Now, first off, I talked about the SD card slot. Now look how fast that, I mean, I just pulled it open and it's ready to go. Chrome OS, that Chrome operating system, and the Chrome browser, this is all built in. So this is not a Windows device or anything like that. It's built on the Chrome operating system, and you basically work in the cloud. The keyboard itself, it's a great little keyboard. It's been compared often to a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, you know, just like the Apple keyboards. The one difference is with any keyboard, really, it's the caps lock, it's a search button. So if I click the search button, boom, it comes up and it brings up the little search bar, and I've got like Google Plus and Chrome and Gmail and Google Maps and things like that. And if I just, you know, click there. Anytime like you put an app on it, like you download an app from the App Store, it just kind of goes within the Chrome browser and within that ecosystem. It's not like you're gonna have like a bunch of programs or apps or something sitting on your desktop. So, you know, people might think that that's kind of hard to get used to, but again, this is a cloud-based device. So with that, with the purchase of this from Google, you get 100 gigs of storage space in the cloud, Google Drive, for 2 years, 100 gigs with the purchase of this device. Not bad, 100 gigs, that's a lot of space. So you go, Google. The keyboard, again, it feels really great. I mean, it's you know, I love the way it types, I love the way it feels. I mean, this is a full keyboard. The trackpad itself, again, compared to a lot of the MacBook trackpads, everything's all in one. There aren't any buttons down here. The trackpad is the button, and of course you can move the mouse, the cursor, you can move your mouse there, and so the button's built in. It's not like the glass trackpad of the Apple devices, but it's still, I think, again, for $249, it's, it did feel different, but I don't feel like I'm gonna break it or anything. So I think the quality of the device itself is pretty good, and you'll love the keyboard. If you've never had the pleasure of typing on an Apple type of keyboard or some of the newer keyboards, I mean, you're really gonna like this. So let me go in here really quick and talk about the SD card. So, all right, so I have a Google Doc open, but let me go ahead, I'm gonna pop this card in, and all right, so if you see that, I pop the card in, all of a sudden I get this pop-up here, this window. And so since I'm not really licensed or able to show you any copyrighted content, I mean, these are just like pictures of my kiddos, but you know, as you can see, you can scroll through. So like I could sit here and edit these photos, delete them, do whatever I want with them, scroll through. I can put documents on this SD card slot, or, you know, or it can be on the flash storage. But again, having the expandable memory is great. And so then it's interesting. So like I'm on this here on that photo and I just pull it out. I don't have any errors of like, you didn't eject it properly or whatever. I just pulled the card out and it just went away. So there aren't any, like I said, there aren't any moving parts on this. I didn't talk about, well, there is I mean, that moves. There aren't, there's nothing that's really just gonna fire up and burn your legs like some laptops do, because, and here's an example, and I didn't talk about the battery life. We've got a 30 watt-hour battery that is apparently 6.5 hours, depending on what you're using it for. And so for me, to give you an example, last night, I wanted to take this device upstairs because I have a MacBook Pro. I could have grabbed that and worked on it, but really this is about consuming. I wanted to consume media. I wanted to check some email and maybe look at a couple videos and do a couple of things online, everything that was in the cloud. And so my wife wanted to watch a show that was like 2 hours long. We watched it in high def, in HD, and so we streamed it. And I had about 43% battery when we first started, and of course I had the screen at about 70%, and you know, the volume's up, and so I was worried. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go downstairs and get the plug for this thing halfway through the show. So we're streaming in HD, and after the 2 hour show ended, I looked at the battery life. Of course, you know, it didn't like putter out or anything. It was fine. It had about 10% battery left on it. And so I was thrilled, and it was like laying on the bed, and it didn't like, you know, nothing was burning, or I didn't feel like I was burning up the laptop by streaming. And I even had multiple tabs open and multiple things were going on at the same time, and it was fine. It didn't hiccup. There was no issues with buffering or whatever. The Wi-Fi was great, the HD was great, the picture was fine. Now, one thing again, I wanted to talk about what I noticed. So this is a matte display. So again, you look at it here, you know, straight on. I mean, this is not Retina display here. I mean, it's a great little display, but then as you know, you turn and you kind of see the shadowing and it's dim. I mean, for 249 bucks, what do you expect? But it was fine. I mean, it does great. Like when you're looking right at it, you can watch HD on here. And like I said, no stuttering, no issues. So, is this a device that you can use as a business owner? Yes. You can use this if you access most everything from the cloud. So if you're email, if you're using like a Gmail, like my companies that I have, I use Google Apps for Business. And so things are in the cloud. So my email, I can check my email from a browser. Let's say that you don't use Google Drive. You don't use their storage, but you use like Dropbox or SugarSync or Box or some other platform or whatever to use and sync or store your info. You can, if it's something that you can do in a browser, then you just access it through the browser itself. Again, you're not going to want to sync or download a ton of info having a 16 gig flash hard drive. I mean, again, you can have these SD cards, but I don't like carrying a bunch of these things around. I mean, I'm in the cloud. I sync from the cloud. One thing that I do want to highlight here that I think is very helpful is that, let's say that you're on this device, and I want to talk about Google Now briefly. And so Google Now is that kind of that technology where it looks at search history, it geotags, it figures out where you are, your location. So like you pull up Google Now like on your Nexus or your Android device, and you're in the car and it says, or you're about to get in the car and all of a sudden you look at Google Now and it says, okay, well, I know your next destination. You're going to the Starbucks over here, and it tells you you're 6 minutes away. And then you can even pull it up on a map if you want to. But my point being is that, let's say that you're at a hotspot somewhere and you're searching restaurants because you have a client meeting and you want to tell somebody, okay, well, meet me here, and you want to find something that is going to be pleasurable for both of you. And so you find a restaurant nearby, but you got to book it and get across town or whatever. So you go ahead and so you find something and it's got your search history here. Well, what it'll actually do is it will sync with your Android device. And so then all of a sudden you put this, close this down, you've put this in your bag, and you hadn't really sent like a Google map or put that on Google Maps or your navigation or whatever. Well, it syncs with your Android device here, where if you pull up Google Now, it will actually look at your search history and there's that restaurant, and then Google Now will tell you, oh, you're about 15 minutes out, and then do you want to pull up directions to get there? And then of course you pull up the directions and then it takes you there. I mean, you know about GPS or the Google Maps, and it gets you to where you're going. And then another feature that I love about Google Now is that, let's say you're at the restaurant and it'll say, well, these are some of the favorites of some of the previous customers. Again, I'm not reviewing Google Now, but I love the fact that the ecosystem itself is that if you're an Android person, diehard Android person and live within that ecosystem, I mean, everything's just going to be syncing up with your devices. And I really dig that. And you don't have to have an Android device per se. It's just everything's in the cloud. So at $249, when you're probably 90 to 95% of the tasks that you're doing, where you're consuming information, checking email, and you can edit a doc right in the cloud. I mean, if you're working on a document, if you know about Google Docs, kind of like the Word doc, you can just edit it, type something up and edit it, and it'll save it, and then you leave that place and you drive wherever, and then you come home. I mean, it's synced there. I mean, it's all in the cloud, so you have access to it no matter what, no matter where you are. So anyway, you can work offline, but again, I would highly recommend online usage, especially with the Wi-Fi. And there's no Ethernet port. It's just wireless. So there might be a dongle that you could put into the USB port and do Ethernet that way, but I think the jury's still out of whether that really works or not. I can't really confirm or deny that. I do want to look into that though. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I do recommend the Samsung Chromebook at a $249 entry point here for a business tool, not as your primary device, as a secondary, because if people like tablets, that's great, but if you want like a keyboard and you don't want to dock a tablet on top of a docking keyboard, and you want to actually edit things or be able to type, have a keyboard to type on, then I think this is the device for you. And so, like I said, 90 to 95% of the tasks that you're doing, I think, can be performed on this. So this is a great secondary device. And that's just my recommendation. Thanks for watching. Feel free to bounce any questions or comments down below.